Assalamualaikum, Dr. Mazlina. Boleh dengar tak?
Okay. Dengar. Doktor, dengar tak suara saya? Okay. Boleh dengar tak suara saya?
Boleh, Doktor.
Okay. Okay. Right. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to all. Alright. Okay. So this afternoon, we will have one.
Saya tak boleh dengar, Dr. Mazlina.
Tak dengar?
Can hear me?
Tak dengar ke? Boleh dengar tak? Alamak.
Dengar, Doktor.
Dengar. Okay. Alright. Dr. Fitri kata tak dengar. Dr. Fitri? Dr. Fitri? Dr. Fitri apa ni ke? Offline ke? Doktor?
Dr. Fitri. Saya rasa speaker Dr. Fitri ni. Kejap ya, saya WhatsApp dia.
Okay.
Dr. Fitri dengar, Dr. Fitri?
Oh, okay. Dengar tak?
Dengar. Dr. Fitri dengar tak?
Okay. Dah dengar tak?
Dengar.
Okey, saya dengar. Tapi saya tak dengar yang sana. Dr. Mazlina ada cakap apa-apa ke?
Dengar tak? Saya cakap ni. Kata. Yang lain dengar ke?
Dengar, Doktor. Sekejap saya teks Dr.
Saya
Fitri.
rasa Dr. Fitri punya ni kot yang ada problem. Can you text dia?
Dengar tak saya punya suara? Dr. Mazlina ada bercakap? Ya. Saya tak dengar Dr. Mazlina.
Dia tak dengar. Yang lain semua dengar tu.
Suara saya dengar tak?
Dengar. Dengar?
Tak dengar?
Tak dengar? Mas?
Boleh cakap something, Dr. Mazlina? Dengar?
Hello. Ya, Doktor. Dr. Fitri.
Dengar suara lah. Dengar, okey. Dengar.
Dengar tak?
Saya tak boleh dengar the other side. More actions. Turning off incoming video. Custom setup. Open. Saya tak pakai earphone. Tak pakai earphone tak boleh. Saya tak dengar. Tak dengar. Cuba cakap.
Hello.
Assalamualaikum.
Hello?
Ya, Doktor.
Okey, dengar.
Okey. Settle, Doktor.
Settle. Tapi mana
Tapi
kamera?
mana you punya muka? Tak ada.
Suara muka tak hilang. What about now? Ada?
Tak ada.
Ada.
Tak ada.
Tak ada. Nampak
Saya nampak Dr. Fitri ni, Doktor.
Nampak? You nampak?
Ada kan?
Nampak. Ada.
Okay, saya tak nampak. Tak apalah. Okay, but your mic is okay, Doktor? Can we start now?
Sure. I can hear you. I can hear you very well.
Alright.
So, boleh dengar I tak?
I dengar. Dia boleh dengar.
Alright,
Okay.
sure.
Okay, Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to all. Okay, today we will have another online webinar, which is organized by the postgrad office from the Faculty of Hotel and Tourism Management. So today we have our in-house lecturer lah, from the faculty, none other than Dr. Ahmad Fitri Amir. He is currently the Head Center of Studies for Tourism Management for the faculty, and today he is here with us to share some of his expert field dia topic on experimental research design, Doctor. So I hope that this session will benefit to all you students, and together with other young staff. Saya tengok juga yang join in. Thank you so much for joining in. The session will be around 1 hour. So later you can ask questions. Nanti if you ada questions to Dr. Fitri, and he will answer it at the end of the session lah, Doctor, ya. So without further delay, so Doctor, you may start sharing lah. Okay.
Thank you so much, PM
Alright.
Dr. Mazlina. And also I would like to thank Postgraduate Office lah at PHP for inviting me to, I would say, like a sharing session lah, more like a sharing session. First of all, I just want to correct what PM Dr. Marcelina has said, that I'm actually an expert in experimental research. Well, I am not. Honestly, I'm not. But I actually had an experience doing an experimental research for my PhD. So I know a thing or two, or maybe maybe more than two, but it was a good experience learning experimental research. I think that research design, experimental design, is not something that we are familiar with, at least in your ITM context, especially in the faculty, because I think since diploma, degree, and masters, we tend to choose a survey design approach for our research. Experimental, it's not really popular. Even based on my experience, none of my students ever done an experimental research lah. So here I am today just to share you a little bit about what I have experienced before, what I know about experimental research, and hopefully you all can consider to do it. Okay. Honestly, generally, I feel that experimental research is definitely more difficult than a survey research lah, because of the things that you have to design for your stimulus material. In other words, you have to come up with a certain, we call it as treatment or manipulation, in order to show that the variable changes in the dependent variable or the outcome because of that particular variable, not something else. Okay. Whereas if you do like a survey research, it's just like asking questions, getting opinions or perceptions. Okay. Can I share my slides? Second.
Okay, boleh Doktor.
Boleh eh? Okay. Hold on. Right. Oh, where's the share button? Oh, it's here. And this one. Can you see it on your screen?
Yes, yes.
It's a full version or like maybe half, I don't know. It's a full slide.
Full Doktor, full.
Full, Dr. Zena. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so anyway, I'm Dr. Fitri. So I'll be sharing my experience in conducting experimental research, especially for my PhD. So just a little bit, orang kata background story lah about my experience in doing experimental research. Now, first of all, I did not intend to do an experimental research. It's just that when I consulted my supervisor, the lady here with blonde hair, okay, and I told her that I would like to do a research on social media, okay, communication, because I would like to see how we can actually increase the persuasiveness of a certain message. Because as we know that tourism industry is I would say like an information intense industry. A lot of time we decided to travel, a lot of time we decided to choose a destination or purchase a product, mostly rely on information that we have from other people, or probably things that we see online, okay, other than our own personal experience. So I always been interested to study that, to study on how we can make sure that we persuade tourists to come to Malaysia, or perhaps how when they receive a certain information, how they can actually take action based on the information that we provided to them. Okay, so my area of interest within the tourism context is on destination image, and also safety and security, risk perception. Okay, and in terms of persuasive communication, it's actually also a new thing for me, because when I did my PhD in University of Florida, so I have to take elective classes. Okay, a lot of classes that I've taken were actually from mass communication department. So I found out that when I learned some theoretical aspects of mass communication, there are a lot of things that we can adapt into tourism context. Okay, like I mentioned just now, because we use information a lot to communicate about tourism product, to communicate about what's happening in the tourism industry. Okay. Okay, so this is actually my topic. Okay, my topic, my PhD topic. All right, the effects of source credibility and argument quality on persuasion of crime prevention messages. So as I mentioned just now, one of my research interest area is in safety and security. So I was looking at how we can actually make sure that people believe, okay, the messages that we deliver to them when it comes to telling them what to do to prevent crime when visiting Malaysia or visiting Kuala Lumpur. And of course, when we talk about variables that affect persuasion, there are a lot. Okay, there are a lot. So I provided that example of persuasive variable, talking about your personal relevance, whether the message is relevant to you or not. Talking about your knowledge on perhaps the destination, your intelligence. What else? Talking about background music. Even like a music have some effect on your mood and how you consume the message. Okay. Just like an example, I can give you guys. Like cigarettes, right? I think previously, maybe 2 or 3 decades ago, if you buy a pack of cigarette, it will say there, right? Cigarettes are smokings are not good for your health. So that's just mere words, okay? And I think perhaps not long after that, they've changed to a different strategy, right? So now instead of saying that, they actually show what smoking can cause to you visually. So that is one of a persuasion variable and how you can make sure people believe in that message, right? For example, if you just read words, it won't be as much effective as if you look at photos, right? Right, photos of the effect of smoking. Okay, so for my study, I actually want to look at source credibility. Okay, source credibility, in other words, different source when they say something, how credible, okay, is the message based on the receiver perception. Okay, so in my case, I actually use a YouTuber, and also the other one is DMO. Okay, so it's like from official organization, and the other one is from just like a travel YouTuber. So I want to see whether which one of these source is more credible when it comes to delivering crime prevention messages. Okay, I also would like to look at the argument quality. So argument quality is like whereby you can have a very strong argument or very weak argument. So like a weak argument is just that you say something without any facts, without any data figures. But for like a strong argument, you can add on those aspects, and we can actually see whether which one is more effective when we talk about crime prevention messages. Okay, so for this kind of study, it's not suitable to use like a survey. I mean, I actually did survey, but that is just one for the measurement. But you have to come up with what we call as like a stimulus material. In other words, we must make sure that we design a material that can only focus on the credibility of these two sources and also the argument. Okay, remember I mentioned just now is like a strong argument and weak argument. Okay, so anyway, I will actually talk about this more later. But for the purpose of this talk today, I will only provide some basic experimental research knowledge for all of you. Okay. So, okay. So when I'm actually preparing for this talk, I was thinking like, how can I make it simple for all of you to understand experimental research design? So I did not want to use this particular topic because I think it's so heavy for like a basic knowledge. So I come up with this topic. Let's say if we want to study factors that make a satisfying nasi lemak. And I think every one of us here loves nasi lemak. In fact, Malaysian, we all love nasi lemak. Of course, we have tasted so many nasi lemak, right? But if we want to make it official, okay, we want to make it known, what are the variables that makes a satisfying nasi lemak? I think we all have our own personal preference. So those preferences are actually the variables that we can use for our study. Okay, factors that make a satisfying nasi lemak. Okay, so let's use this as the context of my talk today, or the context of experiment. Okay, now, first of all, when we want to think about factors, right? So we have to we have to go and find out what are the published research that talks about the factors. Okay, but here are some of the factors that I actually taught myself. So in other words, I did not even look at any published paper, but I think all of you can agree that these are the factors lah. Probably we will have like more factors, but here are some factors that I've identified. For example, like of course, when we talk about satisfying nasi lemak, taste is very important. Okay, what about look? Okay, it could be important. Okay, we are not sure, right? Because this is just like an exploratory study. What about the ingredient use? Okay, but talks about completeness. Is it complete? Is it nasi lemak can consider complete without maybe, I don't know, nuts? Okay, without eggs. Okay. What about the material use? Whether is it a fresh or processed ingredient? Okay. What about the size of each ingredient? Okay. Next one, another factors. Okay, price. Right. Okay, some of you might say that this is a very good nasi lemak, but when it comes to the price, okay, it's not worth to spend, right? So that is what we call as like a price value. Okay, we can also talk about factors affecting nasi lemak satisfaction, like the price of the nasi lemak, expensive or is it a cheap nasi lemak? What about the consumption style? Okay, if we dine in, okay, what about our experience if we dine in? Whether we use plate or we use the nasi lemak bungkus. Okay, we eat in gerai or we go to fine dining to eat nasi lemak. Okay, next one is portion size. Okay, so it can be like small, medium, large. So what is the best the portion size of a satisfying nasi lemak? And you see, I also figure out that, you know, sometimes seller's attractiveness can also become a factor. Right? So for example, like if the seller is good looking, very pretty, beautiful, right? I mean, you can see that people would like to queue for that kind of nasi lemak. Okay, probably not so much of the nasi lemak, but you know, it's just because of the seller. And this is what happened today. Like, you know, when it comes to this viral restaurant, viral menu, kan? The most recently, the Akar nasi lemak. Okay, well, maybe, yeah, maybe that nasi lemak tastes good, okay, but you can actually find similar nasi lemak that tastes good, kan? But probably because of the seller's attractiveness, because of the probably some cultural background of the sellers, kan? We've seen very less Indian selling nasi lemak, so she's like a very unique case. Okay, so you see, all those factors can be included in the study. All right. So let's say here we put the outcome as a satisfaction. Okay, the dependent variable, the outcome, okay, is satisfaction. So to design a study or to choose a study, which one that is most suitable in order for you to study factors that make a satisfaction. Of course, you can. I think generally we would use a survey. Can it's simple as survey. It's like you can just put like a series of questions. Okay. That asks about the taste, look, ingredients. Okay, that is pretty straightforward, and we are very familiar with survey design. Okay, how about if we want to do an experimental design for this type of study, right? Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Right, so we need to know first what is an experimental research, because once we know the basic, the definition, then we can actually separate between an experimental research and non-experimental research. So experiment is actually a method of data collection designed to test hypotheses under controlled conditions. Now, if you recall, you do a science project during your secondary school, right? So you have to go to the lab, and then the teacher will ask you to prepare some chemicals, and they provided you with the equipments, and they provide you with all this, the chemical stuff, okay? And that, and the teachers always start you to use or to measure accordingly, okay? So that is what we call as a control condition. For example, the level of fire, the amount of liquid that you need to put, again. So control condition. So in other words, experimental research is a systematic and scientific approach to research in which the researcher manipulates one or more variables and controls and measure any change in other variable. So I think this is a common one. Like we have our independent variable, and we want to see whether how this IV independent variable affect the dependent variable, the outcomes. Okay, but for experimental research, the main purpose is actually to study the cause and effect relationship. A lot of time when I read students work on their research, okay, they tend to claim that you know they actually opt for a survey design, but they tend to claim that the variable actually cause changes in that dependent variable. Well, for survey design, it doesn't work that way. Okay, it can help to explain, it can help to predict, it can help to be like correlate, but you cannot confirm that the variable that you choose for a survey design can cause changes to your DV. But for an experimental research, you can prove that. Okay, at least you can prove that because you have the control condition. Okay, similar, if you want to do experimental, you can do like an exploratory, meaning to say that it's something very new, new important variables, or perhaps you want to confirm those variables that have been confirmed by other researchers. Perhaps you want to do it in a different context, right? For example, like maybe the experiment was conducted in Thailand. Okay, so Thai people, they have different cultural background. Now you want to replicate a similar experiment, but by considering like in a Malaysian punya context. Okay, so confirmatory. Existing variables, now you want to confirm, but probably in a different context. Okay, so come back to this topic. So what are the factors that make a scientist find us smart? So if you want to do a survey, well, it's very straightforward. Okay, it's very easy, right? You just read published research, find the factors, look at the instruments, and you design a survey. So you can adapt or you can adopt your survey questions. Okay, and if you do survey, you can include multiple variables. So you need to say that you can ask about taste, look, ingredients, price, consumption style, everything put in one long survey. Okay, of course it's not recommended, but if you do a survey, you can do that. It's very simple. Okay, but one thing that you have to be cautious is that the outcomes or the dependent variable, okay, the response that you got, okay, can be influenced by many factors that you might not consider. Okay, when you design that a survey or research. Okay, so for example, like if you put like a question, if you eat a nasi lemak, what is the most important criteria that you look for? Okay, true, you get his or her opinion about that. Okay, and that particular question is basically you ask them to recall their experience of having nasi lemak before. Okay, and there's a lot of places that sold nasi lemak. I probably have eaten nasi lemak in so many places at so many places. So when I want to answer that question, I always have to recall like a place, a time where I had the nasi lemak, or perhaps the most latest experience that I had. Can so that is based on that particular situation only. Okay, but if you do an experimental design, all right, it's a little bit difficult because you have to design a stimuli, which I will explain after this. And you can only choose a few specific variables. Okay, you can choose a lot, but it will be very tedious. It will be a lot of job because it will have to be a different experimental session. Or perhaps you can like add on one or two variables here. Okay, if you do more, then it will be more difficult. Okay, not as much as if you do a survey design. Okay, so you want to test a few specific variables. Perhaps you get one or two from the list just now. Okay, next one, because of experimental, you have the power to control some of the factors. Okay, this is what we call as a control variable. So a control variable is where you try to make sure that any variable that causes changes, okay, you make it like a standard. Okay, later I will explain on this more. Okay. Sorry. All right. So now, what makes a experimental research differ from non-experimental research? Okay, so these are the quality factors or the criteria for you to consider your research as an experimental research. First, it should have a treatment group and a control group. So a treatment group is basically the group, okay, a group of participants which will be exposed to the stimulus. Okay, so in our case, after this, I'll give you the example. In this case, perhaps the nasi lemak, okay, the nasi lemak, and the other one is control group, which will we will not give the treatment or the stimulus to this group. Okay, I'll give you an example of this. Okay, next one, there should be some sort of treatment manipulation. Okay, so manipulation means you can change the variable condition, right? So for example, if you wanna see whether taste, okay, the saltiness, sweetness and spiciness of nasi lemak affect satisfaction. So you can actually change that condition. So you can perhaps lower down the spiciness and you have like a very spicy and not so spicy condition. So that is the manipulation that you can do, right? There's some sort or different level of condition that you can set. Okay, so that is what we call as a treatment manipulation. So another thing is talking about random selection. So random selection is basically when you want to select your participants for the experiment. So it should be random, right? And this actually deals with external validity because the person who participate in the your experiment, okay, they will provide their response, and their response could be biased, okay, within the context of within the characteristics of that person, right? So if it's not random, then perhaps, for example, you choose one of the class here in the faculty to participate in your experiment, okay? And because you are the lecturer, because they know you, okay, so that would have some sort of effect when it comes to the response. Okay, similar to if you do a survey design, I always question my student, if you post your online survey in your Facebook, on your Instagram, okay, that means your friends will answer or respond to your questionnaire. And because they are your friends, okay, they will tend to actually respond favorably towards atau according to what you required for your research. Kan? Okay, so external validity talking about the generalizability of the finding, whether you can relate your finding to other contexts, to other populations. Okay, so for example, like if you use a PhD student, can you actually generalize your finding to perhaps like Taylor's College student? Can so they have like a different characteristics, perhaps, right? Next one is talking about random assignment. Now, random assignment is something to do with the design that you use. Talking about the internal validity, your variables, factors that you choose, basically, it's very specific to what you want to measure. So, for example, if you want to if you want to measure taste of nasi lemak, then you only touch on the taste. You only manipulate the taste, not other things. Okay, so it's more like to the design, okay, how the method that you use when you conduct that the experiment. Okay, so another element of experimental research is what we call as pre-test and post-test. Of course, you have to get some measurement to see if you manipulate certain variable, if you manipulate certain variable, okay, what are the difference, can, before and after. All right, maybe if I can provide a simple example, it's like in UiTM, we have entrance survey and exit survey, right? Whenever you start class the first week, so the lecturer will ask you to fill in the entrance survey. Okay, so that is basically the moment where you did not get any knowledge about the courses that you are taking. Okay, so that is what we call as pre-test. So then you will experience learning, teaching and learning for 14 weeks. That would be considered as like a manipulation or treatment or intervention. There's different word that you can use. So intervention. So in other words, you learn about certain course, right? The knowledge of the course. Okay, and in week 14, they will give you the same question and ask you about whether have you got a better knowledge? Have you do you think you have a better knowledge as compared to what you during the first week? Kan? So similar pre-test and post-test, right? Okay, so goes back here. Okay, maybe it sounds complicated, but again, I've tried my best to make sure it's simple for all of you to understand the basic of experimental research. So again, factors that makes a satisfying nasi lemak. Here, for the factors or the independent variable, I pick sales attractiveness. Okay. So this is the the time where you need to select like one or two variables. Okay. Because again, you can have more, but it's going to be very difficult if you want to manipulate it, right? So you can look at one or two specific variables. For example, here I choose seller's attractiveness. So I want to see whether if I eat nasi lemak and I see the seller of nasi lemak, would it affect my satisfaction? Would it affect my review or my evaluation of the nasi lemak? My overall satisfaction of eating that nasi lemak, right? So like I mentioned, you have to come up with a stimuli. Or in other words, how do you want to make sure that attractiveness affect your satisfaction? So you have to design a stimuli. So it can be a photos of an attractive seller, okay, a pretty seller, a handsome seller, maybe. Okay, this is just like a very simple example. So you can have that, or you can actually get the real person. Okay, but be mindful when you say attractive, right? So you should have like a concept of what you mean by attractiveness. Okay, so if you want to do an experimental research, you have to make sure that the stimuli, you said that you want to look at the attractive seller. Now, according to people, is the photo that you show considered an attractive or not for that particular person? So in other words, you have to conduct like a pilot test, or you have to conduct like a manipulation check, okay, to prove that the photo that you will show to the participant is indeed an attractive person. So before you actually design, you have to make sure that you know the concept of attractiveness first, okay, right? So that one, of course, you can refer to research. Okay, I remember in when I did my PhD, so one of my friends, okay, in mass communication department, she was doing a research on the effect of animal cuteness. Okay, animal cuteness on intention to donate. This is like a WWF case, right? So if you show them a very cute face of animal, baby face animal, okay, people tend to donate more if you show them like an adult animal. So before she actually conduct the experiment, she has to find out, okay, what constitute a cute animal, what constitute a cute animal. So there are studies on that. To my surprise, there are studies on that. So it has to be a round face, small, okay. It has to be round eyes. So, there are some studies who actually done that, okay. Very interesting. Okay, so some goes here, like if you want to choose seller attractiveness, so you have to make sure that you know what is the factors that affect attractiveness, or at least majority of people, when they look at the photo, they can claim that, oh, this is a very pretty person, this is a very handsome person. Okay? And bear in mind, beauty standard is different everywhere. So in other words, like if you show an Asian face to perhaps Western people, that you might get different evaluation on that. Okay, so these are the things that you have to think about when you do an experiment. So it's very kata apa difficult. Okay, it's very challenging. Okay, I remember I have to when I create a stimuli for my research, PhD research. So I have to figure out if someone watches a video, okay, what are the factors that could affect this person's experience of watching the video. So there are a lot of things, guys. So you can say that if someone uses a PC, computer, versus someone who uses a smartphone, what about the quality of video? Okay, perhaps you have come up with a 4K video, but the person only has a limited internet. Okay, that only can be streamed like 360. So it's going to be a different experience. So you have to think about all of these variables. Okay, so like I mentioned, treatment manipulation, it can be someone who attractive or versus not attractive. If you wanna make some comparison, okay. Although this could be a very sensitive and non-attractive, and you show a photo and you say that this is not attractive. Okay, that's why I say if you wanna get the REC, research ethic approval for experimental, it's way more difficult because they will look at all of these ethical issues. Okay, right? So so you would have a treatment group. So treatment group is the participants or the group that you show them the photos of the seller. Okay, whereby control group, you will not expose the seller's photo. So they would just consume the nasi lemak. But for treatment group, once they consume the nasi lemak, then you show them, hey, you know what? This is actually the photo of the seller. Okay, so then you give them like a survey, okay, where they need to put the rating for nasi lemak. So you can see the difference between control group. So control group, without the photos, how much they rate. Okay, for the treatment group, whether there's like a significant difference between, you know, those who have seen the photo and have not seen the photo. Okay, so that's the idea. So that could be from pre-test and post-test. You can also do like a pre-test. First, okay, ask them, what do you think about this nasi lemak? Are you satisfied? Fine. Okay, they will give their response. Okay, and then you show them you after they eat the nasi lemak, then you show them the seller's face. Okay, photo, or you bring the sellers to meet them. I don't know, right? So then you can provide them with another test, similar test, and ask them, and then you can see the difference between the first survey and the survey after the treatment has been exposed, after the stimuli has been shown to the participant. Okay. So next one. Okay, this is I go back to my PhD research. Okay, experimental. So in my case, I would like to see, okay, the what you call it, the effect of source credibility, okay, of these two particular source, travel YouTuber versus DMO. So in this case, like Tourism Malaysia, okay, Tourism Malaysia. Now, if they publish a crime prevention video, okay, which one will have a strong persuasion? Which one will have a strong effect, okay, on the consumption of that message? Okay, so the variable is source. Okay, so I have like two different manipulation there. Okay, one is like a non-professional, the other one is a professional source, right? I want to look at the effect of between strong, weak argument quality versus strong argument quality. Okay, and the DV here is basically attitudes toward the crime prevention message. So whether they rated good or bad when it comes to the whole video. Okay. All right. So next one, let me try to. Okay. So on the next slides, I will show you the video, the stimuli that I've designed for my PhD research. So I've designed myself, but for the narration, okay, for the speaker, I have to hire someone professional to do it. Okay, and another thing, because like I mentioned, there's this variable that we call as extraneous variable. In other words, that variable is not part of our study, it's not part of our interest, but it can affect the outcome. So it's like this. Let's say this video, if I use my own voice, right? So I have a very Malaysian slang kind of English, okay? And as opposed if I use a voice that has an American slang, because bear in mind this study is conducted in the US, so the viewers or the participant came from the US as an American citizen. So even, you know, the slang that people use, the voice can actually affect the response, the evaluation of the people, because, you know, they can identify whether is it a local people who speak in the video, or is it a foreigner. Okay, and I do not want the slang, okay, or voice to be affected the whole experiment, because my interest was actually to look at the source and also just the argument. So other things I have to control, other variables I have to control. Okay, so let me show you this video. Can you hear the video? Boleh dengar tak?
No, cannot.
Oh, tak boleh eh?
No, we
Okay.
can't.
Tak boleh eh? Is there any way that I can on? Saya kena start from this and here. Okay. Okay. Let me show you the video. Hold on. Basic trade. This was okay. Boleh nampak tak? Boleh ke? Boleh dengar yang tu?
Nampak dia macam stuck sikit lah doktor.
Tapi dengar tak suara?
Saya rasa tak dengar ni. Cuba doktor tekan play doktor.
More action. Include system audio. Okay. Okay, let's try one more time.
Okay.
Is a city that is truly one of a kind. The city offers travelers with colorful culture, unique culinary and shopping experiences, as well as an interesting mix of modern and old urban cityscapes. While KL is a welcoming world-class city, it's important to be aware of snatch theft and pickpocket risks when visiting KL. There are 5 safety tips to avoid becoming a victim. If you walk too close to moving cars, you can possibly be robbed by thieves who might snatch your valuables you carry. This misconduct is known as snatch theft. In general, it would be safer for you to always walk facing the traffic and keeping a vigilant watch on motorcyclists and cars who may have the windows down. By doing so, you might be able to protect yourself and your valuables easier. 2 thieves might work together and ride a motorcycle to make a theft as quickly as possible and escape easier. Therefore, you should always walk on the sidewalk, away from the curb, keeping your bags on the side away from the road, which would make it more difficult for snatch thieves to steal from you. With this preventive action, thieves will have a harder time snatching your bags or any of your valuable items. Pickpocketing incidents happen every day all around the world and might probably be the most common risk in many popular tourist destinations. Although you might be aware of this risk, you can get distracted by strangers and fall prey to pickpockets easily, especially in some areas. Try your best to be alert when strangers invade your personal space, as pickpocketers may use certain tricks to distract you before they steal. Learn about these tricks and do not get distracted even though they may be nice to you. It is okay to be skeptical when strangers offer help because you cannot tell their true motive. Pickpockets may work individually or in a team. Sometimes they create opportunities through distractive setups. Each member plays a certain role working in a team. There are various hotspots for pickpockets, including locations which provide warning of pickpockets through signs. The possible reason is that naive travelers usually keep their guard down at places which have warning signs of pickpockets because they assume the signs could keep the thieves away. Thus, it might be best to always keep your bags close and tucked under an arm, and keep your wallet inside your front pocket and make sure it is secure all times. Pickpocketers identify targets by looking at the appearance or manner of victims. Tourists can be considered easy targets because they look and act like wealthy people. They are also assumed to carry a lot of money with them. Because of this, you are advised to avoid demonstrations of wealth. If you look and act like you have a lot of money, you will increase the likelihood of falling prey to pickpockets. As pickpocketers always look for the easiest target, you should not carry a lot of money and behave moderately, or you can be a target. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful time and safe trip in KL.
Okay, so so that is an example of a stimuli, okay, or intervention or treatment. So in my research, in my experimental research, what I did was I wanna see whether argument influence persuasion when it comes to crime prevention message. So I have two video design. One is with a strong argument. So strong argument meaning to say that it has some facts, data, important information. But the one that you just watched was basically a weak argument, okay, with no numbers, right? So that is one of the persuasion variable that I look, and the other one is actually source credibility. Can you guys hear me? Sorry. Boleh ke? Diam ni.
Okay, Doktor.
Okay. Sorry. Sebab I punya gambar video ni macam freezing Okay, so anyway, the other variables that I manipulate was actually the source. So before they watch the video, one of the group, I mentioned to them that this video is designed and published by a YouTuber. Okay, so and they will actually watch either one of the video, whether strong or a weak version. And the other groups, I told them that this video was published by Tourism Malaysia. Basically, it's a official organization for Tourism Malaysia, right? So let me share back my slides. Then okay, this is a slide. Okay. Alright, so back to the video. Boleh nampak slides ni? Saya juga pakai. Tak ada, tak nampak.
Oh, tak nampak, Doktor.
Ni ada. Okay.
Still
Belum
tak nampak.
ada.
Okay, hold on. This one. Screen 2. What about now?
Okay, dah nampak.
Okay, nampak Okay, so so the video you just watched is an example of a treatment or intervention. So before they actually respond to the survey, I asked them to watch and also to think about the argument, okay, and also the source, okay, and other variables that is not the interest of my study, I actually try to control it. So those two videos will be like a very same design. You cannot like have different photos, because different people will have a different ways of looking at photos, right? So we make sure that the whole thing are standard. Okay, for those two videos, the same speaker or the same voice, the same narration, except the difference in terms of the argument quality. So that's how you have to design an experiment whereby you have to make sure that only variables that you want to manipulate, okay, it's affecting the dependent variable, right? Okay, move on to the next one. Okay, so I've been talking about control variable and extravenous variable. So the other IV, DV, and also intervening, moderating, I think these are very familiar variables that you also have learned in research method class. Also, if you want to do research, these are very common. But when you do an experimental research, you have to think about the control variable and the extraneous variable. So control variable, again, those that can affect the outcome, okay, where you can have the power or authority to control it. Okay, like I mentioned just now, I've controlled the visuals. I also have controlled the slang of the speaker, of the narration. What else? Even the font that I use should be standard. So I cannot use a different font for different stimuli, right? Sometimes people see red like, like a warning. Some people see colors white as something that is not that, important as compared to if you, if you use the different color, like perhaps red. Let's say if you use all capital letters, that shows that you are angry or you want to, highlight something that is very important. So those things have some effect to the outcome. So you have to control that. Okay. So now the other one is what we call as extraneous variable. This is also the variable that we did not. It's not the interest of the research. But if you don't control it, then it can affect the outcome. Okay. So for example, let me show you this. Now move to the next slide, can I? Okay, there you go. All right, so back to the study that we want to conduct, which is the factors that makes a satisfying nasi lemak. So we want to look at the seller's attractiveness, okay, and the outcome is satisfaction, whether we are satisfied or not, based on the seller's attractiveness, okay. So if we actually choose seller's attractiveness, right, that is the variable of interest that we want to we want to prove, okay, that this actually affect our satisfaction or perhaps do not affect. Okay, so based on the outcome of the experiment. Okay, but the other things we have to control. So for example, like we have experimental group and control group. So we have to provide them with the same nasi lemak from same seller. Okay, if you cook it, both should have the same kind of menu because you want to standardize everything else. The only difference is that you want to show to them is the seller's face, right? The photos of the seller. Okay, but when it comes to the taste, when it comes to look, ingredient, price, perhaps price, if actually part of the study, consumption style, it should be standard. It should be controlled. Okay, so let me give you like an example that if you want to do this study and you have you want to get two classes to get involved in this experiment. So class A and class B. So class A, you will provide with a photo as the stimuli or as the intervention or the treatment. Okay. Class B, no photos, just nasi lemak. Okay. So when you want to conduct that experiment, you have to make sure that both classes get the same nasi lemak, exactly the same. Because we do not want other variable like taste, look, ingredients affect their evaluation, their response to your post-test, right? So that's the idea of a control variable. Okay, so imagine that if you do not control this, that so you would have like you will still get the response, you will still get the evaluation, but at the end of the day, you cannot actually prove that seller's attractiveness is actually affecting the satisfaction. Okay, unless if you control those other important factors, okay, that could affect satisfaction, right? So that's the idea. And the other one is what we call as extraneous variable. So as I mentioned just now, extraneous variable, again, is something that we do not want to be affecting, but it can also affect the outcome. Okay, for example, like temperature in the room. Perhaps you conduct that particular experiment in a classroom. So For class A, the air condition, for example, the air condition is so good, right? Okay, it's okay, it's fine. Okay, so participants in that room will be very satisfied because it's very comfortable condition to be eating nasi lemak, right? So, but the other group, perhaps the AC, the air condition is not working. So when you conduct that experiment, they do not feel comfortable at all. So you see, even though that is not part of the experiment, but when it comes to the evaluation, I think they will rate, not satisfied, not because of the photo or the sellers, but because of the condition of the experimental lab. Okay, for example, like drink. Okay, so maybe group A or the experimental group, you give them teh ice. Okay, goes well with nasi lemak. But the other group, you bagi air kosong. Okay, you bagi sky juice. Kan? So actually, they will maybe the teh ice group will rated higher than the sky juice group. Not because of the seller's face, but because of the drink that you provided to them, it's different. So these are some of the things that you have to figure or you have to think about when you want to conduct an experimental lab. Of course, there are a lot of things, but you have to make sure that you pick up only those that could have a major effect on the DV. Okay, like in my case, I asked the participant to watch video. So I have to figure out like when they actually watch the video, are they going to use smartphone? Are they going to use PC? Because it's going to be a different experience watching that video with what you call it, earphone. Can so all those things you have to consider, right? So one of the way to get a control variable, like in my case, I have to ask them in the what you call it, survey form. Okay, what are the devices that you use to watch this video? That is one of way to control that variable. Okay, so when you put it in the statistic in what you call it, SPSS, okay, there's a part where you can put like a control. So statistically, they can calculate for you, okay, based on the control variables that you put, right? So what else? Time and place. Okay, so one group you provide their nasi lemak or you conduct the experiment in the morning. It's the best time to eat nasi lemak. But the other one you put after lunch, okay, because they already what you call it, they already eaten beforehand, can? So it's gonna affect the what you call it, experimental outcome. Okay, so control variables and extraneous variables. Okay, what time is it? PM Dr. Mazda, shall I continue or can we stop? I mean, I have more, but I think up to this point.
Boleh dulu doktor?
Boleh eh?
Boleh doktor.
Okay, sure. All right. So these are the things that for me it's very challenging, right? And all of these variables you have to mention in your research report, like, how do you control it? What you do to make sure that you control the variables. Okay, what about the external variables? Have you addressed that? Okay, sometimes external variable, we can just put it in a limitation section. Okay, of course, there are so many things, right? There are so many things that could affect, right? A person when, when they are actually participating in an experiment. Okay, some may come with full stomach, some may come with empty stomach. So definitely they will have a different. Okay, some don't care about the sailor's face because I'm so hungry, so I just want to eat. You show me whatever face, whoever face, I will still want to eat this nasi lemak and I will still feel satisfied because I'm so hungry. Okay, so those are the things, right? And these are the things that you don't have to think when you do a survey research. Kan? Okay. Ada banyak soalan di queue about saya tak tengok pun ni, sebab saya nampak screen ni je. Alright, I think it's because if I start the next slide, it will be longer because it has like a type of experimental research, ada few type, kan? Maybe I'll just talk about this lah. The rest too you can actually go and read on your own lah, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Cuma these are some of the types of experimental research design. First of all, you need to know what does it mean by random assignment. So it's a procedure used in experiment to create multiple study groups that include participants with similar characteristics. So these are the things, guys. Remember, I said that if you want to get group A and B to join, okay, what if group A has majority female student. Kan? Female MA could have like a different preference when it comes to eating nasi lemak, perhaps. Kan? Probably in terms of the portion size of the nasi lemak. Kan? So that is what we call as random assignment, whereby how do we actually select a participant that will be in the group A and B, and to make sure that they are equivalent groups, perhaps, okay, when it comes to their characteristic. So random assignment is to make sure that they have a participant with similar characteristic, kan? Because if it's non-similar, non-equivalent, that definitely you will have a different response. Okay, what about if this class have so many people who have big appetite, the other class semua yang kurus-kurus dia, kan? Very skinny, yeah. So it's going to be like a different outcome juga, right? Okay. So for true experimental design, I think untuk social science, okay, perhaps tourism context, it's quite difficult to actually conduct a true experimental design lah. Because first of all, it requires what we call as random assignment tadi lah. Okay, random assignment. Okay, it's very hard to get people who share similar characteristics if you want to look up for tourists, kan? Okay, so you have a random assignment, then you have O is observation, or it's basically if you conduct measurement, test, pre-test, or post-test. So X is the treatment or intervention. So in pre-test, post-test control group, you have two groups, like I mentioned. Group A, you provide them with the stimuli, you provide them with the intervention or treatment, and group B do not have the intervention. Then you compare the group. Okay? So you can see the sailors' photos, how much effect that it has on dissatisfaction if you compare to the group that has no atau has not been exposed to the photos of the sellers, nasi lemak seller. Okay, so you can also conduct a post-test only control group. Still, you have two groups here. So one group will be given the manipulation, will be given the treatment or intervention, but the other group will just be given the post-test. So this one is without pre-test. Here perhaps you cannot compare the beginning or at the beginning of the experimental design. What is the current state? Okay, when it comes to people preference for nasi lemak, satisfaction for nasi lemak, kan? Okay. The other one is what we call as Solomon 4 group. This is the most it's the most difficult to do, but the most recommended. Okay, because you have everything. You can make comparison to different type of group. For example, you have a group with pre-test, post-test, and the treatment, and you have control group. You have a group with no pre-test, okay, but with manipulation, and you have a group with no pre-test, control group. Okay, so you can compare. If you want to compare like the first group to the fourth group, okay, so you can get like more details or more rich information about the changes to the outcome. Okay, so I will stop here because I want to see what are the questions that I have. Okay. Stop control. Okay, so where is the question? Dr. Mazlina?
Dr. Mazlina dah live ya?
Oh, okay.
Boleh kita teruskan dengan soalan dekat chat box?
Boleh. Tapi saya punya video bergerak tak? Sebab saya tengok daripada sini saya punya.
Sekarang ni saya nampak doktor punya screen. Boleh doktor offkan dulu share screen?
Share, okay.
Okay. Doktor, saya tak nampak video doktor.
Tak nampak?
Nampak gelap je.
Sekarang?
Sekarang nampak. Okey, nampak.
Nampak dah?
Okey.
Jarang
doktor boleh
pakai
nampak chat box?
Okay, chat box.
Chat box ya. Ada 3 soalan.
You can send message because you're not member of the chat. Saya tak boleh nampak lah chat dalam ni.
Okey, nak saya bacakan ke?
Boleh juga.
Doktor tekan dekat chat kejap ya.
Saya tekan chat ni tapi dia empty.
Empty? Oh. Okey, sekejap saya tengok daripada atas.
Can we just ask a question?
Boleh. Dipersilakan ya. Yang mana nak tanya soalan?
Assalamualaikum, Doktor.
Waalaikumsalam. Saya tak nampak. Okay. Waalaikumsalam.
My study is actually on the impact of course design on hospitality training.
Okay.
Okay, but specifically, I'm doing an analysis on venue in course design. So I look venue of training tu lah.
Okay,
so now, if I wanted to do an treatment group and control group, would there be a minimum number that I should have in order to carry out this experiment?
Okay, so based on I punya knowledge untuk experimental research, the minimum for one group is actually 15. But 15 je, 15. 15. Tapi again, it depends lah on the type of the study tu, whether is it for accessible for you to get more participants, kan, the power, effect size. So dia adalah macam requirement. Tapi rule of thumb, it's basically minimum 15.
But actually, we are doing an emphasis on the penjana training hospitality. So we were doing a study lah based on the penjana training that was done during the MCO sampai 2022. Okay, my second question, quick one. Would variables like air conditioning, temperature, or smell of the room, or even noise, would that be a big consideration for venue?
Yes, those are what we call as extraneous lah. Even though it's something yang macam kita panggil trivial lah kan, not important, tapi when it comes to education kan, venue for kelas semua kan, ada effect lah dari segi kita punya knowledge, fokus kita kan. So,
so I can have one group at 62 degrees Fahrenheit and I can have another one maybe at a warmer temperature just to see the difference. Would that?
Only if you use temperature as your punya variable yang you nak study lah. If not necessary. Adakah itu part of the something you want to study? Kalau tak, you just address tu je. In other words, when you conduct the experiment, you just make sure that the room is according to the temperature untuk semua group lah sama macam tu.
The temperature has not been put into the study, tapi it's more a venue like where is going to be held, like outdoor, indoor, in the hotel, in the college. Itu je lah. So temperature has never been but I was looking at other variables like noise, aircon, and all that, whether that will have an impact also kan.
Betul. So I know that extraneous variables sometimes they are very hard to control kan. Kadang-kadang memang beyond kita punya ni, kita nak keadaan yang silent, adalah mak rempit pula kat situ kan. Contohnya kan. But whatever it is, kalau you boleh address as much as possible, that would be good. If not, you can just report je. These are some of the external variable lah, kan. Cuma when it comes to learning ni, I rasa memang environment tu plays major role lah kan.
Yeah, exactly.
Kan. So banyaklah variable yang you boleh look into.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem. Saya tak boleh baca lagi lah, because saya left tadi ke? I'm not sure. So, kalau you boleh repost balik, ada ke? You can send messages because you are not member of the chat. Itu.
Assalamualaikum, Dokter.
Waalaikumsalam. Siapa bercakap?
Saya Anissa.
Oh, Anissa. Khabar?
Baik, Dokter. Saya mau bertanya.
Okay, silakan.
Dokter, I'm a lecturer, as you know, in Indonesia. I teach our laboratory several subjects such as virtual reality tourism and also drone usage in tourism. Selama kami kenalkan, introduce this technology to our student, the student began to interest taking research topic for their bachelor or undergraduate thesis using experimental research design. This is very unfamiliar in our department to use experimental research design in undergraduate study. But unfortunately, there is also many critics and sentiment from another examiner. They not agree that they said that they assume that the experimental procedure are easier to manipulate and have bias. in my knowledge, is that true that in experimental research there are two types of validity and reliability tests? One is validity and reliability test for the experimental instrument, and validity and reliability test for the experimental procedure itself. Is it right?
Betul. Manipulation check, right? Okay.
Nah, apakah ini hanya kami cukup memberikan checklist atau mendeskripsikan saja, karena banyak yang belum memahami, belum familiar dengan experimental prosedur, khususnya di validity dan reliability untuk experimental prosedurnya. Bukan di instrumennya, tapi di experimental prosedurnya itu ada validity dan reliability yang spesifik. Misalnya kita lihat dari Campbell and Stanley itu pernah saya baca. Nah, karena jarang di jurnal-jurnal, di jurnal or literatur yang terkait dengan eksperimental itu menyampaikan hasil dari experimental procedure, validity and reliability testnya. Apakah benar seperti itu? Mohon arahannya. Apakah cuma sekedar di checklist atau kita deskripsikan atau seperti apa, Dokter? Mohon.
Okay. First thing first. Actually, what is the experimental punya objective tu? Like what you trying to do? Ada tak?
Misalnya kita ada virtual museum atau misalnya di theme park. Orang datang kemudian kita minta untuk experience virtual museum dari jarak jauh misalnya ataupun on the spot, kita minta mereka untuk menggunakan virtual tourism misalnya, virtual reality. Atau misalnya foto-foto dari drone, apakah orang interest untuk visit gitu misalnya.
So the use of like photo from drone lah untuk
something like that lah, Prof. Dokter.
Okay, so what I can say is that actually if the experiment is something yang very new, approach dia very new, methodology dia very new, memang examiner akan question lah. First thing first, memang examiner akan question. So you on your part as a researcher, kalau it's not much that you can find when it comes to how to establish the validity or reliability of your experimental research design, you can actually explain lah. Actually, the best part is of course explanation, justification, kan? And also kalau you ada reference similar study yang menggunakan teknologi sama, kan? That would be better because macam saya cakap, issues of reliability and validity ni dia kompleks juga. It differs from research to research, kan? Differs from research to research. So kalau you tak ada basis, maksudnya you don't have like enough reference, I think it's still possible. You can get like approved from experts in that area, kan? Macam those yang pakar in VR technology ke AR technology to endorse you punya methodology tu or instrument you perhaps. Kan? So itu kita panggil apa? Expert validity, kan? Pun that is another way lah of establishing validity. Sebab I think your issue perhaps you mentioned just now is because it's something new, nak maybe tak banyak, kan? And as a researcher, we have to rely lah on whatever that is published. If not, then kita kena start with the first step first, which is to establish that reliability or validity first. Maksudnya it's only a small portion of that particular experiment research before you bought into the larger experiment. So that's what I did before juga. Before I actually come up with my final experiment research, I actually conducted like a content analysis. So my content analysis was about how many DMOs, National Tourism Organization, use YouTube in delivering crime or safety messages. So I found out that out of like 100 or 200 countries, only 10 or 20 uses YouTube to communicate safety. The rest are all promotional videos. So that raises a question for me, like, you know, why it's not like a popular tool or medium to be used by NGOs or DMOs to actually provide safety messages. And so that is like my first project, and then from that project I can actually justify more about my my experiment. So I told them that we need to study whether video have effect on risk or not. Okay, for example, like if I watch a safety video, will I take it positively or will I take it negatively? So if I look it positively, I will say that, hey, thank you so much for giving me these advices. So I will actually take precaution. I will practice whatever that you mentioned. Okay. So the other thing that could happen is that I would think that why they show us this? Is it dangerous there? Why they warn us? Why they say that we have to be careful on pickpocket and everything? So is it a huge thing in KL? Can. So you see, because of that, it is established like one foundation for me to come up with my experimental research. So again, I think maybe your examiner has good concern because it's not being done before, but you can do that, I think, step by step. Perhaps you touch on the most foundation concept first, okay, then move to the like more like a bigger context. Okay. Okay. So,
okay, Doktor,
all
terima
right.
kasih.
Sama. Okay. So it's already 4:20 Mas Surah?
Ya betul doktor. Doktor, sebelum kita akhiri sesi ni, kita ambil gambar dulu boleh?
Sure, okay, thanks.
Boleh. Ada soalan lagi ke? Any question?
Semua nak pergi cari nasi lemak dah ni. Sehari tengok gambar nasi lemak. Okay. On my part, thank you so much, Mas Tura and postgraduate team for organizing this.
No problem.
Thank you, everyone.
Boleh kita minta yang lain buka kamera? Hai Encik Nik. Hai Encik Raja. Hai Anissa. Okay, yang lain?
Another thing is I forgot to advise, if you want to do an experimental research, you memang kena take class lah on experimental research after go training. That's what my supervisor told me before. If you want to do experimental research, go and take class. So I have to do it because it's not easy. It's different. It's different because social science is not like a common thing to do generally, like especially in tourism context, experimental. You can actually with AR, VR technology, user interface, user experience, UI, UX. Kan? I can share with you a very interesting project juga. Okay, yang tadi I mentioned about the cuteness tu, the effect of cuteness, of animal cuteness on intention to donate, kan? So something yang unique in tourism, maybe we can figure out what we can do to make sure lah orang visit the destination tu, kan? I even tried the VR, they can actually design, kan? So they asked me to go up on top of the building, kan? And then they kata, you try to jump. I mean, even though I know it's just like a created environment, but it feels real. Okay, I do not dare to jump. So that's how strong VR is, kan? So when it comes to donation tu, mungkin dia kata dia bagi pakai tu, dia tunjuk the penguin tau, a lot of penguin yang ada oil spillage. So we feel sad. So when we feel sad, we will donate more. Rather than if you go there, hey, can you donate because of the penguin punya species kan threatened by oil spillage, kan? Okay, words it's very hard lah kan compared to kalau kita dapat visual. Yeah, it's very effective and very interesting lah. Okay. Also, you can look at research from communication punya mass comm punya area. I think banyak we can relate. Trust me. Kan? That's another thing that I noticed lah. Okay, Mas Dura?
Okay. Ready ya? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, terima kasih.
Terima kasih semua. Okay. Sorry atas kekurangan ke apa, last minute juga prepare ni. Okay, apa-apa can just contact me. Take care everyone.
Okay, handsome.
Okay, happy weekend. Bye.